Welcome to the Working Moms Podcast, featuring inspiring stories and resources for the modern working mom. I'm your host, Pamela Moss, estate planning attorney, mom, and owner of Law Mother. All right, today on the podcast, we have Meredith Andersen. She is the team lead of Andersen Group Remax Alliance in Evergreen, Colorado. Welcome today, Meredith.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. I'm so excited you're here. We're going to be talking about real estate as a lasting legacy. And before we jump into that and your background, kind of wanted to start off with what is your number one tip for working moms?
Oh, gosh. So I guess I'm going to steal it from another podcast that I love and listen to, and just kind of more my experience, but a few different mentors of mine. There's a saying that you're not trying to go for like a completely balanced life. It's not balanced, you're balancing. And the fact that is like an active verb and it keeps you learning and keeps you growing. You're never going to be to this point where it's done and I'm there. You're going, you know what I mean? You kind of have that theory in your head sometimes, or it's kind of like you're reaching for this unattainable balanced. And so I liked that idea that it's okay that I'm always kind of tweaking and working on this area of my life or this area of my life. And I'm always kind of balancing the things that I want to see in my life.
I love that.
It took off the pressure, especially when I became, a working mom. So, because there's so many areas of your life that you're working on all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And I love that kind of active verb and how you've applied it in your life. That's amazing. So kind of before we dive into the topic, I would love for you to share kind of your background and how you got into real estate and how you got into becoming a business owner.
Okay. Thank you. I grew up in Texas and decided to move out to Colorado, in like 2009. And I met my now husband at my going away party when I decided to leave. And I was like, well, that's really inconvenient timing. It was pretty. So we dated long distance for a while from Colorado to Texas, and I eventually moved back to Texas to marry him. And at that time, I was working in marketing and graphic design, doing actually print graphics, which is kind of hilarious now because they're almost going by the wayside. But so I had, that was my first company that I started. And then when I moved back to Texas, I did actually have a lot more clientele there because I was able to work the networks I had grown up with. But after he and I got married, we moved to live on a sailboat in Mexico. And in the Sea of Cortez, Mexico, we lived there for about a year. And while we were down there, Tim read real estate. Oh, he read Flipping for Dummies is what he read, actually, and got really interested in that. And I am very nerdy. So when we came back to the States and we were kind of reemerging into, our new life wherever in Colorado, we landed back in here. And I have to know kind of all the ins and outs to understand things before I'm really like diving in. So I worked for our realtor. I said, you guys need any help? And I started becoming a real estate assistant and getting licensed. So our plan was to buy a bunch of investment properties and then use that passive income to go back to our sailboat. So I actually got into the business to live on my sailboat. But as it turns out, we did go back once for a couple months, and then we've been here ever since. So yeah. And we still enjoy the passive income of those rental properties, but not to work on the sailboat, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, I love that. And I know you as such a successful, business owner. And so I actually didn't know about the whole sailboat background. So that was really, really cool to hear about that kind of evolution. And so how did you transition into owning your own real estate business and kind of get in that position?
Sure. Yeah. Well, so as we became, successful we bought and sold a lot of properties. So we did remodel a lot of property. And then we bought and held a handful of properties. And then I realized I started working for a few different clients. And I was like, wow, Tim, my husband, I was like, it's quite the challenging client. It's a little easier to work for other people, and I'm able to help them get, what they want, and grow their portfolios in an interesting way. So yeah, I just actually really enjoyed it. I was kind of more a little happenstance that the mentor I was working for, he might have too many clients or he didn't have enough time. So I would pick up, and then it actually was super fun and I loved it. So I did that for a little while and then shifted over to Remax Alliance. And actually every real estate agent is basically their own little company. So we're all self-employed technically, but I decided to build a team actually because I decided to build a family. And I was a real estate agent, I am very, very dedicated. So it was working 24/7, the market ever since I entered the market, 6-7 years ago has been busy and hot. It's been recuperating, from the big recession. And so it's never been a slow paced environment. And I lived and breathed it for the whole time. From the time I was licensed to the time I had Ava, my first daughter. And I realized when I was pregnant that I wasn't going to be able to maintain that level of speed and drop everything I'm doing to go show property or whatever it was going to be. So I knew I needed to grow a team. So that's when I met Parisa. Actually, she was a past client of mine that I helped her buy and sell a house. And then she referred me to her parents and I helped them buy and sell a house. And at that last closing with her parents, she ended up coming and I was like, hey, I'm trying to build a team. Do you have any interest? Because she's a firecracker and she's so good at what she does. And she's just like, everything was ship shape when she was with my client. So I thought she'd probably carry that into the real estate world. And she absolutely did. So she was actually my first teammate, which she carried us through my first maternity leave amazingly. She killed it. I was just so impressed. And then we grew from there. So yeah, now there's me and Parisa and Katie and Hannah. So there are 4 agents and then our full-time admin, Carol. And we moved into it's just technically a satellite office of Remax Alliance, and my own personal investment property is a building, an adorable A-frame building in Evergreen. So yeah, it's just become its own thing. Hopefully that kind of answers the question, but basically I needed to become more, be able to serve more people and still be a mom and be, a wife and have a life too. So, yeah.
Yeah, that definitely did. And I, pre-COVID, had the fortune of coming to your office, and it's, a beautiful space and it's really unique, right in kind of the heart of Evergreen. So if you're in that area and you're looking for real estate, definitely recommend you drop by. We had been planning some events together that got canceled because of the pandemic. So I'm excited for eventually returning back to you and getting to see you and see everything.
I love our space so much. It's like, it was built in the 60s. And at one time, I think it was originally, based on our research, it seemed like it was originally kind of a Parks and Rec building in the area in the 60s. And then it's been a million other things between now and then. And people will like drop by and just tell us stories of how they used to get their hair cut there, or they got their TV repaired there, or, different things that it was. And we love to hear those stories. We love the deep, rich history that it had. And, it was in dire need of saving. It needed to be restored, which we did, put a metal roof on it and created a big, huge deck, which we used to use, again, pre-COVID, for our big parties we'd have every year with all of our clients. And we absolutely love it. It's one of our favorite things is our adorable A-frame. My husband's company is in the lower level, and then the Andersen group is upstairs, and we really enjoy sharing it for sure.
So the next question I was going to ask you before we kind of moved into the topic was any challenges that you've faced as a working mom and how you've overcome them. And that could be one challenge or it could be multiple.
Yeah. So I guess I'm going to go back to the balance versus balancing, because that was something that really helped me get clarity on, giving myself grace and what sort of expectations I have. As I mentioned, I was working basically 24/7, and it wasn't because it was because I love it. I love what I do. I want to hustle and I want to grow and help people. And, so I found it really challenging because I have all that desire and I have all that drive. And when you become a mom, there's a sense of, do I still get to have those things? Am I still allowed to have that much drive and that much desire? Because I have these girls that depend on me now. And in many cases, I'll depend heavily on you. I have a 2-month-old right now. So, she needs a lot of my attention. So that really, I come back around to that, and the seasons of life basically is the way it's been explained to me by a few different people. But, I was in a season of my life when I was hustling and I was working, 24/7, and that was a part of my season for me. And now I'm in the season of life where I am falling more into the leadership role, and I'm helping other people, other agents get what they need. And I'm helping my girls grow. And it's just a new season of life. And so sometimes even when I kind of look back at the old season of like, oh, that was so nice when I could, hustle that hard, and I could, drop everything I was doing to go look at property. Because even as challenging as that is, I like it. I like that fast pace. I like seeing all the inventory I can see. Whenever I kind of remember that or reminisce on that, I'm in a new season of my life, and it looks different. And it doesn't mean I won't find another season, in the next 5 years or whatever, however many years. But I like to give myself grace in that sense of the seasons turn, and that's okay. Because it was a real challenge for me to still be as busy, but not as productive is how it feels, but you're productive in the growth of your family instead of the growth of your business. So I kind of had to just reframe it for myself, because otherwise I think it would be it's definitely an adjustment.
That's so helpful. And it's such that word you used, a framework, and using that season analogy is really helpful. And so thank you for sharing that.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of the next piece, kind of shifting gears into our topic for today, which is real estate being a lasting legacy. Why is real estate a good investment for families?
Well, okay, real estate it pays you in 3 ways, right? So if you're going to buy and hold, that is, it pays you with equity as the market goes up and the increase and all the values around you, as long as you're not tapping that out every time you refi. And then you'll have a good chunk of equity waiting for you one day, or maybe even a paid off property. And all of that value is just sitting there waiting for you. So it's almost like a retirement plan in itself, which I love. And then it also pays you in passive income. So depending on, where you're investing and what your approach is to investment. Some people go specifically for passive income and the mailbox money, as I call it, to, if you're investing, let's say in the Midwest, and that's kind of, you don't expect a lot of equity to come out of the property, but you can expect a lot of mailbox money because the mortgages are lower there, and you'll have, a good rent basis. Where here, thankfully, in the Front Range in the Denver market, we get a little bit of both. So we get a lot of equity. It's more of an equitable position to invest in here, because the increase year over year, well, typically is around, 3 or 4%, but the past year or two has been closer to 10 to 15% increase year over year of the median values around here. So there's just tons of equity sitting in properties that people bought, a handful of years ago, even 2 years ago. Anyway, so that's incredible. But then we also have since the demand in this area is very strong still, for people to move here, we do get a passive income from rentals as well. So it's equity, it's passive income, and then of course you get the tax write-offs of depreciation of the real estate. So we created another company, an entity that does all the banking for those rental properties that we own. But because we did that company has a bunch of write-offs that we get to use every year when filing our taxes for all of our companies. But yeah, so it's an incredible investment when you look at it, it's multifaceted. And, you try to pick an area, you usually either pick, like I said, the passive income route or the equitable route. And when you're lucky, if you invest in an area like here, you can get a little bit of both, which is great. Or a lot of bit of both. I mean, it's been a really, really successful time to be a property investor.
And so if someone's listening to this and they're interested in getting, maybe they purchase their home and they're interested in getting into real estate investing, what tips do you have for them as far as kind of where to go next? I know you kind of mentioned that you and your husband started with that book on a sailboat. Is that where you recommend people get started, or what tips do you have for people that are interested in getting started?
Yeah, sure. That book was specifically about flipping property, which we did do again at a very good time to do it, because the market was going up and the prices were still relatively affordable at the time. And I don't think there's a lot of I wouldn't say that, but the gap for actually flipping property has become much, much smaller in recent years because the demand from primary homeowners, people who are actually going to live in the house, is so strong that a lot of times it beats out how much an investor is willing to pay for the property. That being said, it's not the case for rental property. It's a fantastic time to buy rental property, and I'm always looking for myself as well as for clients. But what I would recommend is, grabbing a financial investment book, first of all, just to get a good bearing on how you want to get your investment strategy to look. But what we do is we actually have a bunch of different bank accounts, and anytime we are paid, we divvy up all of our money into these different bank accounts so that and they're organized based on our goals. So we've set goals. We know we like to invest in property. So one of those accounts is property investment. And we set a certain percentage of our pay into that account every month. And eventually it's big enough for a down payment on a new rental property. And, or sometimes it needs to be bigger in cases like right now where the demand is so strong. It's a really strong seller's market. So anyone who's getting a loan to buy a property has to be extremely competitive. And a lot of times we're covering big appraisal gaps. So because you're offering so much higher than list price and you have to cover that gap. You don't have to, but it's a strategy to win, to be the bid that's chosen whenever you're offering on homes. So it's a good idea to start stockpiling that money to be able to cover those gaps in the event that you're in a multiple offer situation. Anyway, that's kind of covering a lot of areas, but I would start by setting up a plan that, this is a high priority. This is a goal for our family, and then start, siphoning off whatever percentage you can of your pay, either for a savings account and then a property investment account. Or if you want to use the property investment as your savings account, I get that too. It kind of works that way as well. But that gives you the opportunity to actually start investing whenever the time arises, which if you already have a substantial amount set aside and you're ready to make a down payment and or cover an appraisal gap in this market, then yeah, just connect with a really great lender who knows what they're doing. A local lender is preferred. And if you need those resources, I of course have them. And a really great realtor who knows the area and can, like I said, drop what they're doing, show you property, offer right away, get ready to make as many offers as it takes to actually win a property. And that's really all it is. Do your research, what areas are renting well, what areas are growing. Again, if you're connecting with a realtor who knows it, they can put you in touch with those resources or maybe be that resource themselves. But I like to pick areas that are not very trendy. They're not super fast emerging, or they're not just emerging. They've been long-standing areas of desirable locations, and they rent really well over long periods of time. And I like to do long-term rentals versus short-term, and that is just a personal decision because of how much hands-on how hands-on short-term rentals are, unless you're going to pay a management fee. I do all the management myself, so it's kind of hard to I think management fees usually run about 10% of your, so you got to consider that if you're making enough to cover it for a short-term rental. And then, the turnover and the cleanliness, especially right now during COVID, you have to really make sure you're managing all the cleanliness and stuff like that. So I think that you can definitely make great money with long or short-term, but we primarily do long-term, like I said, just because of timing, availability of my time. So
that makes sense. And some of the things that you said kind of go into the next question, which is,
sure.
What are some of the tips for choosing a good real estate agent, both for, someone who's a first-time home buyer and someone who is also looking at becoming a real estate investor? What are some things that you should be looking for?
I'm going to go with the basics here, like somebody you like, somebody you trust, and somebody who knows the area. That's the main thing. Do you like them? Do you get along? Because you're going to talk every day for, I don't know, a month or two at least. And then, if you are working with us, of course, we'll talk to you for the rest of your life because we like to be, your lifetime realtor. We're going to invite you to our parties and we're going to send you a Christmas card, that type of thing. So you definitely want to pick someone you really like working with. That's first of all. Of course, you want to trust them because you're going to be leaning into their expertise for a lot of advice. And hey, what do you think of this area? Do you think this is, as far as an investment goes, do you think this is a long-term growth, or can you provide me, recent neighborhood activity around here? How does this shape up? It's matters, and all of that plays into your decision making at the time. And while decisions are having to be made very quickly right now, especially for buyers, it is something that you want to be able to trust that person to help you make those quick decisions. And then of course being knowledgeable in the area, just our local expertise in evergreen, for example, or we really think about the foothills, golden, evergreen, conifer. I know Parisa lives in pine, so it's that whole front range. How much experience do they have? Do they understand septics and wells, and the crazy lot lines that we have, and which neighborhoods have the crazy lot lines, and the age of the homes and stuff like that. Just a local expert is really going to be pretty important, both on buying and selling, because on the sell side, they have to be able to articulate why your house is so amazing, and they'll probably know that if they know the area. So yeah.
And kind of one of my final questions is something that I ask every guest, which is, what is your legacy? What is the legacy you are creating?
Yes. That's an intense question, by the way. It's definitely, makes you pause for sure. And I have thought of my situation in terms of legacy. But I tried to, I guess when I think of that, I think, I'm really passionate about helping people figure out what it is they want, realize that they deserve what they want, because a lot of times that's a big hurdle, feeling deserving of everything that you want, and then getting it. And I do think that all of that is, that's really where my passion lies, quite frankly. And real estate marries up nicely with that, because a lot of times people want a house or a bigger house, or to be a homeowner, or, certain amount out of their sale or things like that. So real estate marries up a lot of times with family goals. And I think that's why I jive so well with it, because I'm very goal oriented, and I like how those mesh well together. So with that in mind, if I look at it like that, I guess my legacy is, what I want, to leave one. And it's growing a portfolio of, businesses and real estate, so that I can spend my time with my family and traveling and doing things that we enjoy. So it's really quite simple. And it has mostly to do with time, being able to spend it the way I want to spend it. But yeah, it's definitely a question that causes, some pause and reflection for sure. But yeah.
I love that. And you're such an example of what's possible for people listening, as far as kind of the success that you've had and the leadership you've had. And, what is for people that are listening who are here in Colorado or want to invest in Colorado, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you and your team?
Me, specifically me, texting my cell phone number is which you can share, I don't mind. But I am so inundated with emails right now, and probably forever, that I'm like, hey, if you really need to reach me, don't email me, but you can text me and I will probably get back to you within an hour. It's so fast.
Well, you do have a team, and so
yeah.
It like website, social media.
Totally. Yeah. Our website is andersenhomegroup.com, and all of our contact information is there. And that's exactly why I grew the team, so that you can reach any one of us at any time, which is fantastic. I think that's, Carol rebuilt our website, and it is stunningly beautiful and such a great resource. We have gotten so many compliments on it lately, and I'm so proud of her, because it just really reflects who we are. And again, there's tons of resources on there. So if you need like a plumber, or you need, a refi or whatever, you can go search on our website and find all of the people that we recommend too, which I love. I refer that page out all the time. So
well, that's great. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Meredith.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast, and I'm happy to be catching up with you as well. I know I'm really excited about this podcast and all of the work you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, Mama. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Head over to my website, lawmother.com/podcast, for all the show notes and links you heard in today's episode. You'll also be able to get access to my free legal tool for you to name legal guardians for your children, to protect them and have that peace of mind. It's all right there at lawmother.com.